We are live.
Good evening. I welcome all of you to Committee of the Whole Planning Administration for the month of December. I'm going to ask that you all stand as you're able while I read the invocation to begin tonight's meeting. As we come together today, we recognize the great responsibilities that are laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness where freedom prevails and where justice rules. We acknowledge the rich history of this land, which includes the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Together, there are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who live and work in the city. The intent of this acknowledgement is to recognize our responsibility to use and take care of these lands responsibly and respectfully, while remembering the generations past and considering the generations yet to come. We respect and seek to continue and promote the long-standing relationship with this area's First Nations, the Six Nations of the Grand River, First Nation, Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and the Indigenous peoples who reside within the city of Brantford. Let us also not forget those who've served our community and who are no longer with us, so we can continue to do the work that we must in their memory. Please be seated. Has the roll call been taken?
Roll call has been taken.
Thank you. Does anybody have a pecuniary interest they need to declare regarding any item on tonight's agenda? No raised hands. All right. All right, we'll go into separation then. So we do have one item that's already separated, 7.1.6. That's the Citizens Remuneration Review Committee. That's because we do have a delegation. Anyone else want anything separated? Yes, Councillor Sikoli.
I'd like to separate the downtown entertainment district 7.1.3.
And I'll ask for 7.1.4 to be separated. Guess that's it. All right. Councillor Caputo, you've got the motion to approve all items for consideration, consent, not separate for discussion purposes. Would you please read the resolution, state your seconder?
I will. Moved by myself, seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Celeste, on all items for consideration, consent, 7.1 and 7.2, not separated for discussion purposes, be approved.
Juan, would you please read the title of all the items we're voting on by virtue of this particular resolution?
Through the mayor, the items considering the motion are the following: 711 Brant Land Trust Pond Property on Savannah Oak Drive, 712 second phase of neighborhood consultation results for three potential heritage conservation districts, 715 Brantford Truth and Reconciliation Action Plan, 721 annual update on street naming, 722 Omer's bylaw update, 723 People's Master Plan status update number 2, and the minutes. The motion to approve all the items not separated for discussion purposes carries on our recorded vote of 11-0. Those councillors voting in favor: Councillors Venkelberg, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, McCreary, Martin, Celeste, Caputo, Solomon, Sikoli, and Mayor Davis.
So we don't have any statutory public hearings on the agenda, but we do have one delegation. So before we call up the delegation, I am required to read the rules that apply to delegations based on the city's procedural bylaw. And there's 4 main rules: that no person shall display any sign, banner, or placard in the meeting room other than the materials than the opinion of the chair or legitimate audiovisual aids necessary in connection with any presentation made to council. All persons present shall use polite and very respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or the making of any gesture that is disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only on the subject in debate and shall not speak in any other subject. For no person shall applaud participants in debate or engage in conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of the meeting. So we're going to now call up David Prang, who is the chair of the Citizens Remuneration Review Committee. I understand you're going to be speaking to item 7.1. And of course, as you know, you have 10 minutes inclusive of questions to make your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Mayor. I'll do my best to adhere to the rules of the presentation this evening. I'm here representing the Citizens Remuneration Review Committee. We met, I'll give you a brief overview and then leave time for questions. We met 4 times over the course of 2024. We had a great committee that was knowledgeable in areas of the city. Of course, we met on the mandate with a mandate to look at basically how much you as our city council representatives, how you are compensated, how you use that compensation, and come up with a recommendation in terms of what the next council to be elected after the next municipal election would look like in terms of what their compensation and remuneration would look like. Effectively, the 5 recommendations or so are as follows. You read them in your report, but I'll read them out for the public. That the new term of council for 2026 going forward would be set at an exempt wage grid based on a 25-hour per week work week starting January 1st, 2027. This is distinct from the current remuneration, which I believe is at 15 hours per week. And that was reflective based on a survey, a confidential survey of city council as currently composed in terms of the approximate number of hours you work on a weekly, monthly basis. We suggest that effective for the new term of council, the remuneration for the mayor remain effective under the current provisions. That's based on a review of comparator municipalities across Ontario. Item number D, that staff be directed to include the following other compensation suggestions and consideration for the next term of council. And this is where there is some discretion, I guess, on terms of the recommendations. We looked at the work that you do and suggest that recommend that a dedicated support staff person be hired to help members of the council manage their schedules, answer emails, return phone calls, basically do some administrative work for you, including newsletters and those types of things. Implement a CRM system to track constituent inquiries. Cities made great strides in customer service. This is a customer service desk here at City Hall. This is another opportunity for that to improve that process. Number 3, increase orientation to greater than 1 day for new councillors. The scope of the work that you do, the size of the budget, the number of different departments and social issues that you manage, we think demands a more intensive orientation for new councillors. And create ongoing professional development opportunities for new members of city council, especially in the first year. As I think we're going to see, as we know, there is turnover on city council most elections. So that 4-year cycle of intense experience that can tend to be lost as new councillors are joined. And finally, we the last 2 recommendations. One was to amend the honorarium bylaw to implement any wage rate increases to coincide with the effective date of the exempt wage grid, which is usually on January 1st. So that's an HR mechanism embedded in the recommendation. And then finally, that the council review the planning committee stipend amount of $250 per meeting to ensure that still meets the objectives for which that stipend was established. And whether that happens during this term of council or next term of council was a recommendation of the committee based on a fruitful discussion. So with that, I welcome questions.
Councillor Hunt.
Dave, thank you for chairing. I had the opportunity to chair this committee myself back in 2012. Of the recommendations that came forward in terms of support staff, things like a CRM, was there any consensus among the committee members that they were surprised that we didn't have any of that support in place now?
Yes, there was. As I understand, there used to be some mechanism for support from whether it was the clerk's office or other aspects of city staff. So it was surprising, given the nature of the experience, the work experience of the members of the committee, that council members were sort of left on their own to navigate some of the intensity of contact that is prevalent in today's society.
Great. Okay. Thanks for that.
Councillor Scully.
Yes, thank you. Hi, David. Was there any discussion regarding sort of leveling the playing field. Some counselors do a heck of a lot more than other counselors. Was there any discussion about the stipend or, because that exists for a reason, or leveling the playing field for counselors who take on a little bit more than others?
Yes, the concept, I guess, of how the wage rate was established in terms of its effective. Again, I have some HR experience, but I'm not the expert in this application. But effectively, the way that the city views the compensation model for counselors is on an hourly rate basis, non-exempt staff within a certain hours per week work. So it was generally saw versus with looking at the survey of counselors that there was a range, but it tended to be some counselors. Yeah, it was definitely more than 15 hours a week that you're currently compensated for. And it was definitely less than 40. So it was somewhere between that 20 and 35 was the response process. So the mandate of the committee was to look at it within that context. Certainly, I think I'm going off of the committee's recommendation here, but since you asked, I think there's an element, there's a time and a place, not too distant in the future, where the compensation model of a part-time versus a full-time counselor and the mandate of that for a community of our size and where we aspire to grow, I think that merits discussion, likely within the next term of council as well, but that's outside the scope of the committee.
Thank you.
Councilor Martin?
Thank you. The one recommendation is that the planning committee bonus be reviewed. So you're not making a recommendation on that. Does the committee feel that should be removed with the increase that's being proposed?
The committee was not inclined to make a recommendation on the stipend. The discussion was this is an extra piece of compensation that maybe that for counselors that serve on that committee may unfairly enrich them versus counselors that don't serve in that committee for whatever reason. But the committee was reluctant to make did not forward a motion to discuss whether to leave the stipend in place or remove it. Rather, it should be reviewed. It was put in place during during a term of council, and perhaps it should be reviewed with each term of council moving forward. But the recommendation wasn't that specific, but just that it should be reviewed. But there was not a recommendation for or against it.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a couple of questions for you, Mr. Prang.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor.
And I want to show the utmost absolute respect, but they look at the concept of apples to apples, oranges to oranges.
Yes.
You understand what a single tier municipality is, a lower tier and an upper tier, and what the difference is.
Yes, I do. And so does the committee.
And what do you understand that to be?
That the city of Brantford is wholly and exclusively responsible for all levels of services provided by the municipality, from what's underneath our grounds to roughly what's in the air over our heads within the scope of the Municipal Act.
All right. And so there are some lower tier municipalities like Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo. They're part of a greater region called the Region of Waterloo. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And so you'd have the lower tier municipalities, Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo. The council doesn't deal, nor does the city administration, with issues like transit, social services, housing, wastewater treatment, water treatment, housing. All of that's dealt through the regional government, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And so when you're the mayor of the Kitchener and mayor of Cambridge and mayor of Waterloo, you also serve on the regional council, correct?
Yes.
All right.
And
that's because you want to have input into those major decisions that are made regarding those very important items, correct?
Yes.
All right. And so as mayor of a single tier municipality like Brantford, like Guelph, like Windsor, as a mayor, you're overseeing an organization that does what both a lower tier and upper tier does, correct?
Correct.
All right. So if you're comparing apples to apples in terms of mayor's compensation, shouldn't you be including the amount that's paid to lower tier mayors that they receive sitting on the regional council?
Could, but that was outside of the scope of our mandate. However, again, this is more of a personal opinion than that of the committee. I would be delighted to serve in either to continue to serve this committee or to serve another committee or to make recommendations towards the construction of another committee around the governance structure of the city of Brantford.
And, but just to confirm, the amount that you have in the comparative on page 3 of your report being paid to the mayors of the city of Cambridge, Kitchener, and Waterloo, that's solely what they're paid for being the mayor of the lower tier municipality.
That's solely what the lower tier
Alright,
municipality
and-
does not include the regional.
And does not include what they're paid for sitting on the regional council.
Correct. It also doesn't include other boards and committees that they may be compensated for.
So for example, if the mayor of the city of Cambridge, you didn't look into whether or not the mayor of the city of Cambridge can retain the amount that's paid for sitting on that Grand Bridge Energy Board.
Can you repeat the question specifically?
Well, so the mayor of the city of Brantford nominally sits on the board of Grand Bridge Energy, correct?
Yes,
All right, so does the mayor of the city of Cambridge.
yes,
All right, and the mayor of the city of Cambridge, I think, receives about $18,000 for that.
yes.
Did you consider that?
That was not, there was not a recommend. So yes, the committee discussed the potential of additional compensation for sitting on boards, but we were advised by staff that the city of Brantford, the Brantford City Council has a rule in place established by council that directs compensation of other boards.
So when you're
up to
doing
the
this,
city.
you're comparing you're doing a comparison analysis of what mayors are paid and came to a conclusion that the mayor of the city of Brantford is overpaid. Is that not what you said? in your report?
Under the HR structure, HR compensation structure of the city of Brantford, the analysis is that the mayor of the city of Brantford is overpaid compared to their competitors in comparative single tier municipalities of approximately the same population base.
Does it change your assessment if you know that the mayors of the city of Cambridge, Kitchener, and Waterloo in terms of total compensation receive in excess of $200,000 each?
As I stated before, we operate under a certain mandate, and I would be delighted to chair or lead or provide personal recommendations in terms of the governance and compensation structure for the entirety of the city of Brantford City Council. But that would be more of my personal opinion rather than the findings of the committee.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Krang, for answering all of the questions that were put to you. So with that, we don't have any other delegations. So we'll move into the items that have been separated. And before we do that, if I can get a motion to put the items on the floor for discussion purposes that were separated. Okay, Councillor Sicoli?
I think that's me.
Yep.
Seconded by Councillor Sullivan, that all items for consideration consent separated for discussion purposes be approved.
All right, so we'll move first to the item that we had a delegation on, which is Citizens Remuneration Review Committee. That's item 7.1.6. Floor is open for discussion. Councillor Hunt.
Through you to staff, I'm looking at the staff report that has the comparator municipalities for councillors. And it shows that the city of Brantford councillors are second to lowest, only beneath Thunder Bay, as for the 2023 comparator report. So Anita, I'm wondering if you could tell me, when you were doing that comparison, if the number of hours per week and the hourly compensation were data that was also collected in terms of those municipalities.
Through you, Mayor Davis, to Councillor Hunt. The other municipalities did not provide information regarding the hours of work or the hourly rate. In most cases, it was just an annual salary that was provided.
Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to try an amendment in clause F where it says the council review the planning committee stipend. I'd like to change that to that council remove the planning committee stipend. Change the review to remove. And speaking to that, you brought up.
First of all, let's give it a seconder, so yourself and
Seeking a seconder. Councilor Carpenter, thank you.
Councilor Carpenter.
Discussion
on the amendment.
As you stated about Grandbridge Energy, there's a stipend that goes along with that board that is normally kept by the members that sit on that board, but with Brantford, that money is turned over to the city. So with that as an example, I'm not sure why the counselor sitting on the planning committee would get this extra $250. It's unfortunate the committee didn't make an actual recommendation on that. Sounds like they were divided on that particular item, but I personally think that's something that should be removed with the increase that's involved with this. And so I'll see what other people have to say.
Any discussion on that amendment? Councilor Sigurd.
I'm actually not going to be supporting removing this just yet. I think it warrants a lot more conversation than this. And the reason that it exists is because it created an unfair disbursement of workload amongst the ward councillors, as we do find in a lot of our bylaws mandate that one ward councillor has to sit or should be sitting on a lot of our committees, and just the time of day that a lot of these meetings are held, it creates quite often an unbalance of workload between ward mates. I myself take on a heck of a lot of committees because, you know, my ward mate has a job that he needs to be at. So I do a lot of extra work, and the planning committee does require a lot of extra work. There is a lot of reading. There's a lot of detail that goes into planning applications. So I'm just a little hesitant to just remove it on the fly. I think it warrants a lot more discussion than just removing it here and now. So I'm not going to be supporting it today.
Councilor Sluss.
Thank you, Mr. I'm not sure of the intent. Is the intent that this would be implemented upon a council approval, or is this for the next term of council you're talking? So it would be the next term? Okay, thank you.
Councilor Carpenter.
Thank you. I seconded it because I didn't support it when it first came forward. You know, we've had some of these planning meetings that lasted a half an hour. That's $500 an hour. Had a number of meetings that lasted an hour, some only 2 hours. Still $125 an hour. It's pretty expensive. I did take the stipend because I didn't sign up as a council member with that part of the process. And as far as some councils doing more work than others. I mean, the social services committee is a lot of work, but I choose to do that work. My ward mate likes the finance committee. The finance committee in the future is probably going to meet quarterly, so it'll be or less work, but I'm okay with that. You know what you're doing when you go into it. When you sign up, you know what the rules are and what the cost is and what the workload is. Either you do it or you don't. So I'm going to support the recommendation going forward to the next council because it should be built into the whole price. And even when we look at the committees that I think Councilor Martin talked about, the Grandbridge, while you're not, our process says you can't take the funding, you can direct it. And when I was on the Grand River Conservation Authority, I directed my funding to the to the Seniors Resource Center, who certainly could use it on a monthly basis to help educate and make sure seniors are being kept safe in our community. So there's other options to direct those as well. It doesn't need to be part of our stipend. I think a stipend should be one general rule. I agree with the councillor, the learner councillor Martin, who's been here a fair amount of years.
Councilor McCurry.
I shall also be supporting Councillor Martin's amendment. It does apply to the next term of council. Councillor Carpenter and I both chose not to take the additional pay for service on the planning committee this year. Councillor Carpenter's comments are quite accurate that, on the whole, I don't think we'd spend a lot of time in the planning committee, certainly not to the exclusion of other committees that we sit on, health unit committee, for instance. Some days that runs from 9:30 till sundown, or so it seems. But you know, that committee does tend to go longer than planning committee does. And I think it's a good point that for the next term of council, considering this is a significant increase to councillor remuneration in itself, I think there's merit in Councillor Martin's amendment to do away with this. It still allows those who made the commitment to sit on this committee this year and receive, you know, the additional stipend. It doesn't abrogate that responsibility, I think, that we have to those folks who do receive it in all good faith. So I'm supporting it, and I think it makes sense to do so for next term of council.
Well, since I'm not running again, I'll be absolutely bluntly honest. You know, being a politician, when I was an elected official back in the 1980s, back then it was a different situation. It was a volunteer concept. There was some honor in serving in public office, and there was some respect. That's gone totally by the wayside. I'll tell you this, as an elected official, it's unbelievable the amount of abuse, harassment, coercion that you're exposed to. I don't know of any, and it really is, it's a workplace. That's the reality of it. The day of people volunteering for this sort of thing, they're gone. And if you want good qualified people to run for elected office, then I suggest you got to compensate them accordingly, because there's rarely little that's there in the other working condition that makes up for it. In fact, I don't know of any other workplace where you're expected to tolerate the kind of workplace abuse and harassment that politicians are subjected to. And you're seeing, as a result of that, very far fewer people willing to run for elected office. So on top of that, if you're not properly compensating someone for work that they do, and where else in society do you do that? Where, you know, someone takes on extra responsibilities, they're expected to take the pay that that organization is paying and use that to reduce, in essence, reduce the salary or stipend you're receiving for elected office. Like, to me, I just don't understand that. And frankly, the situation we have here in our community, where those who do extra work, whether it's on the health unit, whether it's police services board, whether it's a GRCA, whether it's a Grand Bridge Energy Board, there's very few other municipalities where the politicians or elected officials that do that are not entitled to receive and retain that stipend. That's generally accepted practice. I don't understand where Brantford is doing this. And again, it means nothing to me because I am not running again. I can make that 100% clear. So it means nothing to me. And I ran for this office understanding that. But I got to tell you, I'm very concerned about, you know, if we continue to underpay and refuse to pay elected officials for the work that they do, the extra work they do, continue to expose them to the toxic working environment that they're subjected to, you're going to find a lot fewer people running for public office. In fact, that's one thing I hear more often than not. I don't know how you do your job. I wouldn't want to do your job. I think you've got the worst job in Brantford. I don't know how you can put up with this. That I receive that comment more often than anything else I receive. So with that, I'll just say on that basis, I'm not voting for that amendment. And I'll call the vote.
The amendment carries on a recorded vote of 8-3. Those councillors voting in favor: Councillors Ventelberg, Samwell, Hunt, Carpenter, Martin, Caputo, Sullivan, Mayor Davis.
So did I.
One second.
You can switch Councillor Curtis for mine.
So the amendment carries on a recorded vote of 8-3 again. Those councillors voting in favor, councillors Ventilor, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, McCrory, Martin, Caputo, Sullivan. Those councillors voting against, councillors Celeste, Sicoli, and Mayor Davis.
All right, let's move on to the next item, which is the same item because that was an amendment that passed. Any further discussion? Okay, Councillor Van Tilburg, then we'll go to Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, I just want to clarify and make sure that I'm sure of what I've read here. It was mentioned that other municipalities when that don't actually monitor hours worked and that they just have a salary. So in the past, it was 15 hours per week. Would that be correct?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Van Tilburg. Yes, that is correct. The city of Brantford paid based on 15 hours per week when we converted our salaries to an hourly rate.
And that annual salary would be about 37,500 roughly, give or take.
Through you, that's correct.
And so the hourly rate would be about $48 roughly.
Yes, that's correct.
And so when we add in the extra hours, we're actually providing a little more money for counselors. There's an increase there, and that's about 42,500. Would that be correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And an hourly rate of $32, give or take.
Yes, actually $32.71.
All right. So with that, thank you very much. This may put us actually more in line on what many people in the working world make, and many make a lot less than that. It does reflect the, and again, it is true, some counselors put in far more than 25 hours even. Some wards are very, very hard workloads. And then there's other counselors that don't have maybe the difficult ward, but are able to engage in a lot more community things. So you can hit 25 hours. I think pretty much every counselor was blowing past that 15 hours for a long, long time. So this is far more reflective of the realities on the ground. And I think that if the public would see that this was a $48 an hour counselor, and that it's actually being reflected at $32 per hour. Many people do make around that amount of money. Many people do not, but I think it's more in the range of what people may understand, particularly in a working class environment. So I'm happy to support the changes here.
Councillor Hunt.
I would like to actually try an amendment to B. I find, first of all, at $48 an hour, $32 an hour amounts to about a 33% decrease in your hourly rate. The committee did come right out and say that it was very clear that most counselors were working well over 15 hours a week. And so recognizing that the 25 hours a week is more in line with the work that's being done, but to then take that and say, well, you were making $48 an hour at 15 hours a week. Now we want you to, now we think it's more in line to pay you for 25 hours a week, but we're going to take that hourly rate and reduce it by 33%. So I guess a question to Anita, the step 3 of level D, what does that equate to from a city staffing position?
Through the chair to Councillor Hunt, a lot of the positions in level D are the entry level administrative types of positions that we have in our corporation.
So we are sitting here as councillors making the decisions that are then carried out by staff at council's direction, but the hourly rate that the committee feels that we should be compensated is something around what an entry level administrative assistant is making. Is that a fair statement?
Through the chair to Councillor Hunt, the effort was put into trying to find a salary level that would be comparative to other municipalities for the councillor position. Most of the other municipalities simply look at a salary level rather than an hourly rate multiplied by a number of hours per week. So we were trying to find an appropriate hourly rate multiplied by the 25 hours that seemed to be reasonable as expressed by the chair of the committee. And the most effective one would have been step 3 of level D.
Okay, so I'd like to try an amendment that changes the remuneration for city councilors to be set at the current hourly rate. And be based on 25 hours per week, starting January 27th, recognizing this is the next term of council. So we're talking 2.5 years from now before this is even going to take place. I just find it, I find it somewhat of an insult from an hourly rate perspective to be on the same hourly rate as an entry-level administrative assistant, given the scope of the work that counselors do, and really the level of expertise and leadership in the community that is expected of us in order to make decisions based on that experience. So seeking a seconder. Counselor.
So my Counselor Kerber.
Okay.
Just want to clarify, so you're amending subparagraph B, correct?
The subparagraph B would just be that the remuneration for city councilors be set at the current rate per hour. And I realize it's adjusted every year. And be based on 25 hours a week, starting January 1st, 2027. Basically just removing the $32.71.
Right, okay. So we've got that on the floor for discussion. Counselor Sakoli.
While I agree with a lot of the comments made by the mover of this amendment, I'm not going to be supporting it because I just don't think it's a good look for us to be sitting up here doing this on the fly. There are a lot of moving parts. I would personally like to see this be referred back to the committee to compare, just to jump back to another analogy that was used, apples to apples. I want to see if other municipalities are able to receive their stipends and how much money that they're making from that. I hate to be so hung up on the finances of this, and there's no good look for us sitting up here. It's a very uncomfortable situation. I would like to refer this back to the committee to look at with a little more detail. I don't think we should be taking a huge pay decrease, because I do think that if we want to attract candidates that have an appropriate skill set to be sitting up here and making these very heavy decisions, I think we do need an appropriate remuneration in place for that. Right now, and I made this joke not too long ago with everyone. I said, this is really a position for someone who's retired to just supplement what they're already getting. But someone like myself who's still trying to put 2 kids through school, it really has to be a passion piece for someone, because it takes a lot of time away from my other careers, and there is a pay decrease there. So I'm not going to vote in favor of this, just because I think I want to try a referral back to the committee just to have them look at this a little more deeply with a fine-tooth comb, and really make sure that we're comparing other municipal councilors that are a single tier municipality who do not receive stipends for other committee work, or maybe we should be looking at that as well. But I do feel that it's important that we are compensated appropriately for what we are doing up here, and that in itself will benefit the residents of the city of Brantford, to make sure that we have appropriate people sitting up here making those decisions.
Any other discussion? Councilor McCurry.
Mayor, thank you very much. I'm not sure I understand what the amendment means in terms of the annual salary. Is there someone who could calculate what that means in terms of annual salary? I'm not sure what the numbers are, so I'm not able to vote on it as it is.
Fair enough. It's almost a point of clarification. Anita, would you be able to do that for us?
Through the chair, the total salary would change to $62,418.
And Anita, what percentage increase would that be?
That would be a 66% wage increase.
Do you think of any other position in?
Could we also get the hourly rate that currently is being paid?
Sorry, Mayor, I missed the last part of that question.
Yeah. I think following up what Councilor Curry has said that, so 32.71 per hour is in the resolution. What is the current hourly rate?
$48.014, $48.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for adding that clarification. So speaking solely on the amendment, the reason that we strike a committee of citizens is to take these things completely out of our hands. And we empower these folks that are here with us today to do the research, to interact with our HR department and make what they think is a reasonable balance between compensating members of council for the work they put in, plus respecting the taxpayer and people that we work for. When I'm looking at this, what looks to me is that the committee has recommended about an 18% increase for this council based on an increase of 6,000 some odd dollars on a current salary of $36,000. I find it a bit troubling that members of council would think that 18% increase might not suffice. And I also think that, you know, we've seen a careful analysis by the committee based on hours, but the point is that none of us are going to work any more or any less. It's simply an increase in the annual salary. So I think that really does color the discussion. And I for one, I'd be embarrassed to take a 66% increase, and I will certainly want to support what's before us in terms of an amendment.
Councilor Sluss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's a little rich for my blood as well. I understand the intent and it makes sense. I think from that perspective, but financially, I don't think it works as far as working for the taxpayer. That nobody gets those kind of increases. I would definitely support revisiting this and looking at, I think what Councilor Zaccoli was talking about, the apples to apples comparison, because the same thing would occur as what occurred with the mayor's, I guess, discussion during the presentation. And that is that when you see the bare salary or honorarium, I guess it would be called, of a number of these two-tiered governments, you're seeing the bare salary that they make for representing the lower tier that they represent. What you don't see in that is the amount of compensation they get by serving at the upper tier when they go regionally. That's not reflected in the numbers that are being used to compare. And I think if we're going to compare, I think that's the appropriate way to compare it, is to what they're actually getting, not what they get for part of their job, because that's what you're comparing it to. And I don't think that that's a reasonable way to come up with a reasonable number. So I won't be supporting what's on the floor, but I would presume that a member of council will be putting something forward, which I'd be happy to support and second if necessary. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Caputo.
Yeah, thank you. I'm in the same agreement. I think when I ran for this position, I knew what it was going to entail. Money certainly wasn't the motivator. But at the same time, one of the things that certainly people don't understand is the outside of the council, work. Just reading reports to get ready for council itself that could be up to 400 pages. That takes time. Preparing for special councils, different types of meetings, not to mention the fact that GRCA meeting, committee which I'm a part of. That's a 3 hour a month. That's basically 9 to 12 meeting. And there is a stipend for that. And that stipend that comes to the city is directed to the food bank on my behalf and so forth. But I also am interested and really curious to see how and what other municipalities do with the stipends that they receive. Because being on the health unit for the last year, those are 3 hour meetings, once a month. So, if other municipalities are paying stipends out to the councils, I think that should be part of our, the consideration when we look at this. So I'm actually going to want to support deferring this back.
Well, so right now we're debating Councillor Hunt's amendment.
Yeah, I'm not going to be supporting that.
Anything else, anyone else to Councillor Hunt's amendment? Councillor Martin. Then we'll go to Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought you had me on your list, but I guess you didn't. As Councilor McCurry said, the whole reason for striking a citizen committee to review this is to take it out of our hands. And I think if we were to approve an amendment like this on the fly, it would be an insult to that committee. I think they've done excellent work. I certainly don't want to insult them in any way, shape, or form. I want to thank them for the work they've done. So I won't be supporting this. A 66% increase instead of 13% increase, I think is ludicrous. And it's not something that this council should be doing against the recommendations of the citizen committee that looked at this objectively with all the information, with all the comparators. And the one aspect about single tier and multiple tier, not all councillors that are on the lower tier sit on the regional government. So there is some discrepancy there already in other communities, and that needs to be taken into consideration as well. And that's an aspect of looking at the remuneration from various boards as to whether councillors should keep them or not, because I'm sure that all the councillors in two-tier municipalities, they keep the money they get for sitting on the regional government. It's not something that they would turn over to the municipality. So I want to thank the committee, and I certainly won't insult them by voting in favor of this amendment. I'll be voting against it.
Councillor Hunt.
Well, apparently my amendment is not going to pass, so I will withdraw the amendment, but I do think that the public should know that the recommendation to pay councillors what we have just heard from our HR department, what an entry-level administrative assistant makes for the city, does not, I don't think, speak well to recognizing the work, the leadership that's required, and the sheer decision-making that we have to do here as a single-tier municipality. So I will withdraw my amendment because I don't think it's going to pass anyway. Happy to see it referred. And this was no disrespect to the committee. I just wanted to put it out there that equating an hourly rate with an entry-level administrative assistant does not seem to me to be a fair compensation for the work done by councillors.
Councillor Carpenter, seconder, you okay with that? Good. Okay, so it's withdrawn. So we have the resolutions amended once based on Councillor Martin's amendment. So it's open for discussion unless any further discussion before we take a motion to refer or defer. Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you. I haven't spoken to this at all yet. One of the recommendations, first of all, thank you for the committee for the hard work you did and very good work on behalf of the community. And as I said before, the best thing you can do with such a recommendation is accept the committee's independent resolution. Even if you refer it back, you're directing them to do something else. And I'm hoping that you don't do that either. One of the things I'd like to highlight here is the dedicated support staff. I'm speaking to Mr. Bradley here, that we had a dedicated support staff before. But the problem was it was in the budget of the clerk's department for the dedicated support staff. And I'm not blaming the clerk's department, but the clerk's department got very busy. There was lots more work, and that dedicated staff got used somewhere else. And it didn't become available for counselors. So
if we're going to have dedicated report staff in the next term of council, it needs to be in the council budget. The overall council budget, so that it doesn't get taken out of there unless council themselves take it out of there. So I just wanted to highlight that point. Secondly, one who's been here many years, I found it, I've always been loath, there's two ways to think about this. I've always been loath to make full-time counselors, because then I'm sure, does that just mean full-time pay? And does that guarantee that they're going to do the workload? It doesn't. But the salary that my ward mate was talking about, and others have talked about, we are a full-time municipality. The workload is larger than it's ever been. And as the mayor has said, the public's support for governments everywhere is degraded. They have less respect for government of all types and everywhere. And so it becomes a bit of a negative field, more than it was ever been. So members of council work very hard, but giving a pay raise doesn't mean you're going to get a councillor work harder. It doesn't mean you're going to get one work less either. So there's no guarantee. That's where the public comes in from election to election. They'll decide whether their councillor was doing the work that they expect them to do or not doing it, and they'll do that at the ballot box. So it's a difficult process to determine which way you want to go. Do you want to lure full-time councillors? Because I mean, as Councillor Scolia said, and she's right. I mean, this job, it takes so much of your time now. And Councillor Caputo, who runs the business, is very busy trying to get the workload done. If you want councillors that are going to be able to do the work for the municipality long-term, as a 4-year term, to spend a lot of time doing the work and the research that could be done more than we do, then you need to find a way to make sure that the stipend matches that workload and the size of the municipality. We're not a tiny municipality anymore. We're a large municipality with a lot of growth happening and a lot of things are jumping in the air. Full-time municipal council, as the mayor said, we handle everything from sewage to clean water to housing to everything. And we have to be knowledgeable about all these things, and that there's a lot of homework and a lot of things to do. And some of us are fortunate we've been here long enough, we've sort of grown into it. So it's been easier for us to learn, but new councillors coming on, the learning curve is gigantic. And I think we have to find those ways, and some of the recommendations in the report talk about that, about giving extra work. So I'm hoping we just accept the staff or the committee's recommendation and the hard work that they did, and not insult them by sending it back, quite frankly. Just accept that it's the next council that's going to do it. It's not us. It's whoever is elected the next term. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Sakala.
Yes, thank you. And I would just like to point out that I'm not insulting anyone. I just have respect for my own personal money in the same way that I respect the municipality's money. And I would be a little bit hesitant to someone who doesn't even respect their own bank account and how the level of respect that they might show the municipality's money. So I am going to refer this back to the Citizens Remuneration Review Committee just to have one more look at it. I want to not look at this through the lens of it's a percentage increase. We're merely leveling the playing field, figure out what other councillors are making, who are representing a single tier government. And it is relevant if it's a single tier government, because I have the workload, we all have the workload of what some municipalities have 2 tiers of government doing, right? We have that stress, we have that workload. And I do think that it just should be looked at through that lens. So I'm going to put on the floor a referral back to the Citizens Remuneration Review Committee to have a look at this, and seeking a seconder.
Councillor Sless, second. Yep.
Thank you.
So that's a motion of referral. Right, because you're asking to take a second look at it. All right, so that is debatable on its merits, not just as time and place. Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I seconded it, and it's certainly not disrespectful to the committee, because you did a lot of work. I know that. I know who you are, so I know what went into this. But I think, Mr. Prang, when you made your presentation, you said that wasn't in our mandate to look at how other communities that are not single tier, how they're structured, and how the pay is not apples to apples, as the mayor said. So I think this is asking you to look at it through that lens and just try to compare this to another municipality through the same lens. And I think that's what I would like to see. And hopefully it won't tie up a lot of your time. And hopefully staff can get that information for you that you can digest and make a recommendation, whether it stays the same or whether it gets changed. But at least I think then we will have had a thorough vetting of the whole situation, instead of some leaving here thinking, well, it really wasn't done apples to apples. Others thinking well, it's okay because they did it. Maybe there wasn't clear enough direction, precise direction in the first place, which would fall back onto the council. So I'll be supporting it, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else to the referral? Councilor Curry?
Mayor, thank you. I'll reiterate some of what I said earlier. First of all, I respect the work done by the committee, who were properly instructed and properly convened 4 or 5 times, if I recall correctly. You had the support of our HR department, who provided a most fulsome study of comparators elsewhere. We all recognize, I think, around this table that there is something of a need to look after a disparity in terms of workloads, and this begins to address it somewhat with respect to providing counselors with staff assistance in terms of dealing with the increased workload, that we all see. You look back to years ago when say Councillor Sless and Councillor Carpenter came on, and you'd only have correspondence by telephone and by letter, and mostly by pencil, I would think, because I'm not sure that the fountain pens were just new on the scene back then. But I will say that what we have what we have before us today in terms of year-over-year increase is a very substantial increase in remuneration, which I think recognizes the view of the committee that we are worked harder than before, and that the committee feels that councillors in the next term of council should be more adequately compensated. And I don't disagree with that. But I think if I do my math correctly, what's before us today is an 18% increase by 2025, which certainly is not going to be enjoyed by many others in this community, who may also be expected to be working a heck of a lot harder than they did the year before. And quite frankly, I hope that councillors will defeat what's before us in terms of referring this back to a group that's already done their work, and support what's before us today, which is a recommendation from a third party about what they think we should be doing. I think to do otherwise makes us look like greedy pups.
Councilor Caputo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I won't be supporting this referral. I would, though, appreciate if staff would be able to get back to this council, though, the questions that were there based upon stipends and so forth from other tiered governments. Mr. Prang, I've known you for a while. I'm sure you and your group did a fantastic job with this and a lot of hard work. So I'll support what's being presented in front of us. And thank you.
I'm going to support the motion to refer. I already made first of all, let me make it clear that there is no recommendation here in respect to the mayor's position. It's to leave it as is, and I'm okay with that. It means nothing to me, frankly, personally, but I am concerned, though, for those who come after me that they're properly compensated for the very serious responsibilities the mayor has, especially for the city of Brantford, which has entailed within it a number of unique obligations and pressures because of the First Nations issues that a lot of mayors don't have to deal with, and a number of other different factors that I think makes it important that when you're looking at the remuneration for the mayor, it truly should be apples to apples, oranges to oranges. And the only way you can really do that fairly is when you're looking at other municipalities, you're looking at total compensation, not just the terms of reference or the frame of reference, because underlying your whole analysis, do find members of the committee is really comparative. It's what do others for comparable positions, what do they receive personally? I mean, that's what you're comparing. right? And so if you're going to look at compensation for elected officials based on a comparison, what other municipalities are doing, to be fair, it should be apples to apples, and you should consider it from a total compensation perspective. Or alternatively, if you're not going to do that, then you just look at solely, don't even look at other municipalities, just look at what is the value provided by each member of council in their position, assuming that they work an average workload and are of average competence. And so you do kind of a value added analysis. What value does that position provide to our community? But you're not going to do it that way. You're going to do it comparatively, comparison of the municipalities. And I would suggest, based on a sense of equity and fairness, that you do the broader comparison and ask staff to get you more information. So I'm going to vote in favor of it. Don't think anybody else wants to speak to the referral, so I'll call the vote. Oh, sorry, Councilor Van Tilburg.
No problem hiding up here in the corner. I gotta say that the level of input from counselors towards the committee this time around was probably the most significant I've seen. I know we've done one of these in every term, and this is my third term. And by far, this was the most thorough. The questions were detailed, and the asking for extra information on what we do was all there. And there's been a lot of comparators for over the years for us. And I do recall the year that I came on council, the previous council had recommended a wage increase. And I remember that at that time, the councilors of the day, when that was coming forward, in other words, it was already to be given to us, it was expected. The councilors of the day said, hey, we're in a recession. The rest of the public aren't getting these types of increases. And we put the freeze on it. And so, you know, those things, you have to take upon what the environment is around you, as well as what the situation is within the council chambers. With regards to getting good people in that, well, I honestly, gosh, I look around this council chamber. The electorate has done very well in selecting good people to represent them, and that will continue. What sometimes this does is it makes decisions for people on whether or not this is a job they want to do. And I think you've really got to know that if you're going to get into this, you've got to have the passion. And so when you compare what that passion does to make you take on this work, the remuneration is at times somewhat secondary. But most of all, I think what the remuneration has to also reflect is what is the public outside looking at and viewing. And I think I think it was mentioned that at this rate, even though we see changes in the numbers, there is an increase coming, and that percentage increase is an amount that people are striking for less than this increase before us. There are other places that it's not even on offer. They don't have that ability to strike. So yes, there are comparatives that you start out as that one could compare it as an entry level clerk wage, but it is what it is. And the thing is, when you get fees higher, I think once you say that you're going to pay somebody $60,000, you're really saying we're moving into a full-time counselor position. And then if you're going to say we're into a full-time counselor position, you have to say nobody should be working on the side or doing anything other than their full-time counselor duties. And so right now, Brantford is growing. It's going to change. The makeup and the look of what gets offered will change over time. Each time that this has come before me in the past, I have respected what the committee has brought forward, and I'm going to do the same today, so I won't be supporting the referral. It does feel like a fishing expedition.
Yeah, I'll take my second speaking opportunity for the benefit of the committee. I think one other thing to consider in terms of the position of mayor, I mean, it's absolutely unquestionably a full-time job to be the mayor of a city of 110,000 with a lot of the unique issues, as I said, that we have here in Brantford in this area. And so you have to consider if you want someone to be a mayor and it is full time, they cannot maintain another occupation, right? So you're going to, I suspect, the level of compensation has got to be an important consideration if someone's going to take this position on, in their 30s or 40s or 50s. If they're going to leave another occupation that they're reasonably successful at, which I think you want that type of a person to be our mayor, you got to bear in mind that the level of compensation, if you're asking someone to leave a former occupation, even on a leave basis, temporary leave basis, the compensation is going to be an important factor. They've got to support themselves. They've got to support their families. And so you end up then, if you're not paying appropriately, I'm not suggesting a huge increase, but you got to bear it in mind. Because if you don't, then you're going to end up with candidates like me who are at the end of their career, right? So can afford to do it based on how well they, based on what they've done before. So that's something I think you really have to consider. Also that the obligations of a mayor now have increased with strong mayor legislation. There's a lot more responsibility than there was in the past. And basically now the mayors under strong mayor's legislation, you're the chief executive officer, which in our case, a corporation of 1,500 employees, a budget of $350 million a year. That's a big corporation. And so the mayor under the new legislation, strong mayor, is no longer like a ceremonial, symbolic, really head of council. You're described and expected and given the legal responsibility to be the chief executive officer of the corporation. So that entails a lot of responsibility, all of which I think should be considered for the benefit of our community in the future and also for those that would come after me and to be fair to them. So with that, I'm going to call Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think some of the comments have indicated that people aren't looking at the increase as a salary, and the placement on the grid is just a convenient way to change it from once every 4 years to a yearly increase. And when you look at, 13.5% sounds like a lot, but it's been 4 years. So it's less than 4% a year for the increase. It's not out of line with what some of the people are getting in the private sector and public sector. So once you consider that it's an increase that covers off 4 years, it doesn't look so bad. And I really like what they've done by going to a spot on the grid. It allows it to go up annually instead of a big jump with the new council. I think this is far more appropriate, and I'll be supporting what's been recommended.
We're going to call the vote on the motion to refer. Oh, sorry. Councilor Carver, do you want to speak to the motion?
Just a quick one, if I may, Mr. Mayor. I'm not supporting the motion to refer, but if the motion to refer fails, I'd be happy to support your point of view that the mayor's salary at least should be relooked at. The council one's already been done. I think that's fine. I would support that if this fails.
Okay, I'm going to call Councilor Coley for the last time on your motion to refer.
For the last time, if you are interested in the mayor's salary being reviewed, if you're interested in reviewing how we utilize our stipends, the appropriate solution instead of us sitting up here talking about our own salary is to refer this back to the committee to have a second set of eyes on it or a second look at it. Nothing may change. They may look at it and say, you know what, we did, everything lines up and we're coming back with the same recommendation. But at least now we're providing a little bit of direction and giving them the appropriate lens to look at this through. I'm less concerned with the salary than I am with the stipends. I think the stipend might provide some balance and some fairness to some of the harder working counselors. So I'm really interested in looking at that. I'm really interested in looking at this through apples to apples. I definitely agree that the mayor position should be relooked at. There is a lot of workload there and there are a lot of very geographically relevant situations that our mayor is put in that other mayors may not have to contend with. So the appropriate solution here, if you think that there is one or two things that could be looked at again, is to just send this back to the third party, to the committee, to take us out of the discussion and to let them look at it. So obviously I will be referring or supporting my own referral.
Okay, I can call the vote on the motion to refer.
The motion to refer these laws on a recorded vote of 4-7, those councillors voting in favor, councillors Hunt, Celeste, Secola, Mayor Davis, those councillors voting in favor, and sorry, against, councillors Ventilbor, Samuel, Carpenter, McCrory, Martin, Caputo, and Solomon.
Okay, I'm gonna call the vote on the entire resolution motion. I think we've had enough debate.
Item 716 carries on a recorded vote of 9-2, those councillors voting in favor, councillors Ventilbor, Samuel, Carpenter, McCrory, Martin, Celeste, Caputo, Secola, Mayor Davis, those councillors voting against, councillor Hunt and Solomon.
Right, we'll go to agenda item 7.1.3, which is the Downtown Entertainment District Options Report. The report has us choosing certain options for that moving forward. Councillor Sicoli, you asked for it to be separate.
Yes, I did. Thank you. I have a few questions of staff. I see Joe coming from the farthest point in the room possible. Okay. My first question refers to the district that we see, the suggested district that we see outlined here. And I'm just curious where we came up with that actual area. Was there any research that we kind of drew from that suggested that a certain radius is the most successful, so on and so forth?
Through the mayor to Councillor Sicoli, this is really a very preliminary draft, high level. It does encompass a lot of the lower bowl where the future sport and entertainment center will be located. For the most part, it wasn't random in terms of it was really more for discussion, but using some of the natural boundaries that were already there and including, the properties north of Dalhousie, which includes the Sanderson Center and then Harmony Square. A portion of the boundary itself was taken from the downtown priority plan.
Okay, thank you. You're getting off easy with me, but I wouldn't go too far because I bet you some other people have questions. So having a look at this report, my original instinct really was that the district was too big. In my opinion, I thought when I look at other communities and other entertainment districts or similar districts, it tends to be hyper focused to like one street, or maybe it's like a T kind of shape. So I think without getting into the minutia, because I know that we'll probably have a much deeper look into this, my original instinct was that maybe it's a little too big. I really hope that we're incorporating, I did see noted in here, or perhaps it was the ACTEV strategy, because there is some overlap between the two reports, that we were going to have a focus on like active transportation in the area as well, which I love. And I really hope, because I know in my travels, I frequently seek out and my travel buddy will seek out those electric scooters. And, so I do hope that we have we bring in that aspect to help people kind of move around the district. I think that's a really great plan. As far as choosing between option 1 or option 2, option 1, I have full faith that our staff can, execute this. And I know you've already done a really great job with the report. But I don't want to totally discount maybe bringing in a consultant to assist with maybe some of the public facing parts of this. I think off the top of my head, I'm kind of thinking maybe a hybrid type version. So allowing city staff the freedom and the ability to kind of put together the strategy and the plan, but then maybe outsourcing the public engagement piece to make sure that we have perhaps a local consultant out there speaking to the public, conducting focus groups, making sure that we're doing something a little bit more broad than our Let's Talk Brantford campaign. So I think when appropriate, Mr. Chair, I'm going to try and to amend this to have sort of like a hybrid version. But other people, I'm open to hearing other people, so I'm going to see what they have to say.
Well, I'm not seeing any other hands raised to speak. Councillor Samuel? Okay. Councillor Samuel, then Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that when I was looking at this report as well, I felt very confident that our staff would do a great job with this. And I'm happy to see that we're not spending additional money on consultants this time around if this goes through. Not that I don't think the consultants do a great job as well, but I do feel that our staff are very capable, and I'm sure that our communication staff could do a great job as well. To go over and above what we're doing now for consultation. So I'll be happy to support option 1. Thank you.
Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of comments on this. I think the map is actually very well done. Our current downtown isn't very large to begin with. And I think as you start to add and start to develop to it, you're going to trickle into other areas and expand it. So I think it's very wise what we've done, and we've certainly utilized the grant, and we've moved it further east, which I think is very smart. As for the options, I'm in the camp of Councillor Sicoli. I'm really into option number 1 because I really strongly believe in the city staff here. The 2 years I've been on board, the conversations, everything we've talked about, all the different plans going forward. This is an absolutely phenomenal staff that has a very good insight and vision as to what is expected and what we should be looking like as a city. What I'd like to propose is that to probably be doing some interviews to bring some local individuals in versus a consulting company, because when I look around at all downtowns in Southwestern Ontario, if they've hired consultants, then I don't want those individuals. I want local people who have a vested interest in this city wanting to make an impact. Someone who has the ability to see what it's going to look like before it is even out there. So if there is going to be an amendment passed by Councillor Scully, I would support that, but I would have city staff with some local residents as part of that group. Thanks.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm quite happy to support option 1. This is something that every time the report comes forward recommending a consultant, I say, well, is that not something that city staff could do? And a lot of times there's some aspect to it that maybe you need an outside consultant, but I'm glad to see that this is one that staff are admitting that they can take on and do a good job. Because if you hire a consultant, well, the first thing they're going to do is talk to the staff. Because they don't know Brantford, they don't live here. It's the staff that work here that understand Brantford, that know Brantford, and it's all the same information. It's just that you're paying somebody from outside to analyze it instead of having our own staff who understand and know the area deal with it. So I'm quite happy to support option 1.
All right, I don't think there anyone else want to speak before I go to Councillor Sicoli for an amendment. All right, Councillor Sicoli, over to you.
Yes, thank you. I'd offer an amendment that we select option 1 with the caveat that a community engagement effort would also be considered in the preparation of the district by an external consultant. So again, a local external consultant. I think it's important that we're looking at our talent locally here. And that is already in option 1. All I did was add that it will be, that small part will be by a local consultant and seeking a seconder. Councillors.
Councillor Caputo, you're seconding that? For discussion.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, so do you want to speak to it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think you, Councillor Secoli's kind of hit what I was trying to get at, that when it comes to having some outside sources to be able to assist with the decisions that we want to make, it's imperative that we use our local people, our local talent. So I will support that, with the intent that, the direction, the mandated, downtown still is in the hands of our city staff, because they do a great job. Our planning department, our economic development department, our public work department. These people are fantastic at what they do. And they are excited and they are more than willing to be spearheading this type of an opportunity that we have here in the city. So I'll be seconding the motion and I'll be supporting it.
Councillor Samuel?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I will not be supporting this amendment today. I feel that the work that's already being done on our public consultation task force and the way that engagement framework is being expanded to look at other avenues of engaging folks is already doing a lot of the work that will be needed to also do engagement for this process. So I'd like to keep it with staff. Thank you.
Before we go to second speakers, anybody else want to speak to this amendment first time? Councillor McCurry?
I'm not sure that I completely understand the amendment. The amendment seems to be, if you add option 1 to option 2, you get a total of option 3. So this would be option 1.5, I guess, if we want to, dice the numbers up a bit. I don't know what a local external consultant is or how it differs from an external consultant, and I'm not sure how we would manage to do that in terms of procuring services. I'm pretty sure we're not allowed to favor local people over external people. And I don't see any budget attached to this. In fact, financial considerations, it says there are no implications as a result. So I guess, do I understand from the report that if we choose this course to proceed, that staff will have a budget for us on the 17th of December? Is that, through your mayor to staff, is that, Joe, what you would read into this, that you'd have that budget by then?
Through the mayor to the councillor, no formal budget has been assessed. The report for the SEC was approved by council on August 29th. So there wasn't a whole lot of time to assess and go out for any kind of estimates with respect to this. This is very high level review, a 10,000 foot kind of report. What the plan was with respect to this is come forward with a follow-up report that would identify what implementation efforts would be required and any costs with respect to engagement and implementation of the strategy or district.
Okay, when would you expect that secondary piece of info would come to us?
Through the mayor, the plan is that there are current funds available within the budget, within economic development, and there's also the opportunity of in the near future, once the administration policy is approved through the MAT and the MSC for the tourism component of the city, there might be some opportunity there to utilize those funds. So it wouldn't be a fund per se that would be coming out of council priorities or anything of that nature. But in terms of a follow-up, I think if we have the direction here to investigate the option 1 recommendation preferred by staff, then we would follow up with a subsequent report to committee and council.
And with respect to procurement, there's nothing in this that would allow sole sourcing that I can see. Is that your interpretation as well? Joe?
Through the
Oh,
mayor
sorry,
to come.
Well, I meant to say.
Sorry, nothing in this report speaks to procuring any sort of services, but certainly if the amendment was to carry, there would be a need to procure those services. And I think staff would need to take that back and look at what the consultant would be doing and be able to obtain a budget for that. And we'd have to bring that information back to council.
Fair enough. Thank you for that.
All right, I'll go to Councillor Scully. You have to speak a second time to your amendment.
Yes. The amendment, what it does is it ensures top-notch public engagement. I think there's a lot of discussion out there about this. I think that something of this size deserves proper public consultation. So I'm very confused as to why someone would say that they believe in public consultation and then not want the Cadillac of public consultation here. It just doesn't make sense. I will offer a friendly amendment to remove the local part to this, because I do understand that we have a procurement policy that we do need to focus on. But it is my intention that there would be a funding source and a dollar amount brought forward to our council meeting regarding any financial impact that would be attached to this amendment. So I do think it's important that we have proper public engagement on this, proper focus groups are conducted, proper public engagement pieces, proper Let's Talk Brantford campaigns. I think it goes beyond the scope of what we do, and I think it's deserving of that. So that's why I brought this hybrid option forward.
Okay, first time speaking opportunities now that have been requested, so I'll go to Councillor Hunt, then Councillor Van Tilburg on the amendment.
Yeah, so through you, and I'm gonna ask Joe to come back up, but I'm reading C, that staff be directed to report back to council in Q3 of 2025 regarding option 1 in report 2023-703 with potential costs and an implementation strategy. So if I could ask that question through you to Joe, would the time to hire potentially an outside consultant for consultation be part of that report coming in Q3 of 2025?
Through the mayor, if I believe if this amendment passes, then that would be something staff could report back on. But I would just advise to members of council that that would require an RFP process, and it would add on to the time with respect to preparation, implementation of an actual area district plan.
So my understanding though of the implementation strategy would be that your report outlining the implementation strategy would potentially then be the appropriate time to discuss whether or not we need an outside consultant for the public engagement piece of the implementation strategy.
Through the mayor, correct.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
Yes, Mayor, I would like a ruling. This sounds like option 1 that has been modified. That is essentially option 2. I see no difference. Option 2 says similar to option 1, except hiring an external content to determine a framework. So I'd like you to rule whether this is actually option 2.
I'm going to rule, Councillor Van Tilburg, that it is distinct from what I believe are the 2 clear options provided by staff. I really do see it as, I think what Councillor Coley described it as a hybrid. I think with the option 2 that staff had in their report, I think was somewhat more comprehensive or inclusive of what an outside consultant would do. That's my impression.
Thank you, Mayor.
Did you want to speak to it? With that clarification.
Well, I won't be supporting it. It's too close.
All right, Councillor Sandler, did you want to speak a second time?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So there's some things, and it doesn't happen often, that Councillor Sicoli and I agree on. And I'm going to say this, I agree that we need a very good consultation. Community engagement is very important, but I do think that we have a great team at Team Brantford here, and our city staff, given the opportunity and the resources they need to do good public consultation, we'll be able to do that. We also have a citizen committee that is our citizens that are on the task force that are talking to us about how we should be consulting people. So there's a lot of good people already working on this, and I don't see why we would spend more money doing it otherwise.
Councillor Sluss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not clear. I'm hearing if we go with option 1 that there's no there's no budget to hire an external consultant to complement what city staff can do. Correct?
Through the chair to the counselor, Nicole Wilmot, Chief Planner, Director of Planning and Development Services. So you are correct. There is no budget already established to hire an external consultant to undertake the public consultation component of this strategy. Staff would need to report back likely in January with a work program and a high-level cost estimate of what it would look like to scope that portion of this work out to an external consulting company.
I guess my second question, and maybe you just answered it. If council took option 2, we'd be approving it, but with no budget.
So council would be approving, directing staff to prepare a full work program as well as to engage consulting services to understand what the scope of work would look like and cost for the entirety of the project, including consultation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I'm going to call the vote then on vote. Councilor McCreary, you already spoken, but you get a second chance.
Thank you for that mouth lesson, Mayor. Through you, I was of a mind to support the amendment before us until I heard Councillor Samwell speak so eloquently. And I agree completely. I think we have the skills and the knowledge, and certainly we can tap into citizens like we tapped into the committee that presented before us tonight, which was chaired by Mr. Prang. And we certainly have the BIA and the Chamber of Commerce's resources. I think we have a lot of community resources that we can tap into, that we can rely upon, that we can work to our benefit. And I'm of a mind to agree that we don't really need another Toronto consultant coming to Brantford, misspelling our city's name and telling us what they think we should be doing based upon their expert conclusions from St. Jamestown or some other example of poor urban planning and poor entertainment districts. So I'm gonna vote against what's before us, and I'm gonna support option 1, which I think puts our faith in our staff who know all this stuff, our staff who are well versed in terms of community engagement, probably better than any consultant we could use. I think our folks do a pretty damn good job of everything that we need on this file going forward. And I think to support option 1 not only is the best course of action, but I think it demonstrates the faith that we have in the folks that work for us every day.
Right, calling the vote.
The vote on the amendment fails and a recorded vote of 2-9. Those councillors voting in favor, Councillors Laputo and Sicoli. Those councillors voting against, Councillors Ventilbur, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, McCreary, Martin, Sullivan, and Mayor Davis.
Any further discussion on the resolution? Councilor Curry?
Mayor, it seems to me we have nothing on the floor. Is that correct? For options?
No, it's built in. I believe it's option 1.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Okay. So if we're voting for this, it would be option 1. So, not seeing any other raised hands, call the vote.
Item 713 carries on a recorded vote of 10-1. Those councillors voting in favor, Councillors Ventilbur, Samuel, Hunt, McCreary, Martin, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Sicoli, Mayor Davis. Those councillors voting against, Councillor Carpenter.
Okay, we have, I think, one last item that was separated, the economic development strategy. And I believe I asked that to be separated. And I think given what I have to say that, I think I'll turn over the chair to Councillor Sullivan, who's mayor of the month next month, and you would fill in for me when required. Do you mind taking over the chair?
Delighted to.
Thanks. So I want to talk to the economic development strategy. And, you know, there's really nothing, frankly, one of the most important things for our community, and this report reflects that, and a lot of hard work gone into it, is, you know, what is the economic development strategy that will sustain us into the future and make our community more prosperous and more efficient? And you know what, when I went through it, I must have found 10 references, at least a minimum of 10, to joint services with the County of Brant. And certainly that has been, since I was elected, that was very much one of my platforms, one of my objectives. And that was to, given that we're really, there's two municipalities, but we're really one economic area, one region, and most people see it that way in their daily lives, that there clearly was more that we could do, City of Brantford, County of Brant, in the spirit of working together and team spirit and being able to provide and deliver services and initiatives in a much more efficient manner and also more effectively. And so frankly, you know, I was quite disappointed when at the end of the last term, we struck up a joint services committee. The Mayor Bailey indicated to me early on that he was quite in favor of that. And you can imagine my shock when the county council got a hold of it about 6 months into the last term and totally rejected it and made statements like it's a waste of time for the county to talk to the city. And they set up a committee, or they said they were going to spend more time talking to their other neighbors, Oxford, North Dumfries, Cambridge, and felt that there was no need to talk to us. And then even the Mayor Bailey said at a subsequent event that he wanted to build a wall around Brantford. And then we had, I was flabbergasted when we were doing a tourism brochure. This is about 6 months into my term, first term. And we refer to one attraction, the Twin Valley Zoo, which is in the county. It was referred to in the city material. And we actually had the county sending us letters saying you cannot refer to anything in the county, which I found mind blowing. And then the pandemic hit, and then we were forced to cooperate by virtue of circumstances, and we did. And coming out of that, I thought was a great initiative, the joint housing strategy, the mayor's housing task force, a great goal and objective that we set.
There was a point of order. Please state your point of order.
Yeah, we should be speaking to the report in front of us, not to our past experience and be attacking the county.
I can respond to that. The big part of this report, economic development, is about the economic development strategy.
I think
so you have to, in order to,
before you can continue.
yes.
Try to stay closer to what we're talking about here with regards to report and not leaning away too far.
Okay. Okay, I'll bring it right up to the present then. And a couple of really important initiatives that are critically important to our community. We tried to strike the Joint Services Committee this year, so it's current experience. The goal and part of the city was to really talk seriously about joint transit, public transit, and a joint transportation system. And the County of Brant slammed the door on us and said they had absolutely no interest in that. And as a result, for the city to be able to deal with its looming transportation crisis, we really only have one option to look at now. It's the Oak Park Road extension. That's the reality. That's a cold, hard reality. Because the County of Brant has said very clearly, they're not interested in talking about anything that expands beyond the services we already have jointly that were set like decades ago. We had recently the merger of the health units, and frankly, we were saddled that based on votes of the county members. Now we have the hospital initiative in some jeopardy by virtue of the fact that the county is not setting up a reserve that they had in their budget last year. And, you know, there are some other really important initiatives as well. And so, you know, I say to myself, this is critical to our economic development strategy at the city, dealing with the county. And clearly we have a county that doesn't want to have a relationship that expands and provides services more efficiently. So what do we do as a city? We either accept that we're going to be constrained indefinitely. We won't be able to reach the full potential of our city and our region. I don't think we should accept that. And so I want to tell you, so Mr. Sullivan, the powers I have under the Strong Mayor legislation, I'm going to be directing staff under Strong Mayor legislation to prepare a cost benefit analysis of amalgamation. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? And to have that done by an outside consultant or economist or accountant to make sure that it's done independently and unbiased.
Mayor.
There'll be some
your
cons with
time
that.
is up. Would you like to have a second speaking opportunity?
Indeed, I would.
Any other speakers?
If anybody spoke, if I was to speak to what the mayor said, I would be off the topic, and so I won't do that. And I would just say that when you work with somebody, respect is a two-way street.
Councillor Hunt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to speak to the actual economic development strategy from 2024 to 2031. I am pleased in Ward 4 to represent the largest commercial, industrial, retail area in our city. And I really want to commend our economic development staff for the report. I can really one of the things that when I was first elected as a business owner in the city for 35 years, I felt that there was a lot of focus on attracting businesses to our community and not enough focus on us doing a really good job of supporting our existing business community. Over the past 2 years, I've seen that change. Councillor Carpenter and I are on probably at least once a month, if not every other month. We're on an industry tour, getting to know the businesses that employ hundreds of people in our community. And I think that that is so very important. I've talked to businesses in my role as a business owner that would love the opportunity to have an industry tour at their factory or their place of business. And so I think what is so important in this strategy is the recognition that it's not about bringing new, it's about supporting who's here, who's been here for decades, who's employing hundreds of residents in our community. So I really want to commend our staff on the strategy and the recognition of how important that is. And as I said, as one of the two councillors representing such a large, diverse commercial, we've got everything from the mall to Costco to industrial areas. I think we're starting to do a really good job of the recognition of the business community. And Mr. Prang has left, but I really want to give a really shout out to our staff for the work that we're doing in recognizing the importance of our current business community that's here. So thank you for that.
Councillor Scully?
Yes, thank you. Question for staff. What can we expect next from this report, specifically with the farmers market? I see a lot of goals laid out, but does something secondary come to council at some point? No.
Through the chair to Councillor Sicoli, within the body of the Appendix A, it does speak to an implementation plan. So that will be if council at the end of the month or next week endorses the strategy, staff's focus will be on the implementation efforts of the action items that are within the strategy itself.
Okay, so for those of us who are just hearing this, when would it be for the farmers market?
So Through the chair to Councillor Sokoli, what was the question?
Like, so I see that we've listed out a few goals for the farmer's market. When can we reasonably expect something to come? Would it come back to us?
Sure.
You know, with some more detailed upgrades offered there, or?
So through the chair to Councillor Sokoli, Ray Petro, manager of real estate. Once this is endorsed and ratified by council next week, different actions will have different timelines depending on where they fall within our workload. Some we can implement almost immediately. Things like regular communication with our tenants at the farmers market, and look at starting some customer engagement focus studies. Others might take longer, things pertaining to physical improvements at the farmers market. So there wouldn't be one deadline for all of them.
So I guess my question is more pertaining to physical improvements at the farmer's market. I've spent a great deal of time there lately, and I want to stay there longer, but there's just not really anything to do. And I think in just speaking with some of the vendors there, there's a lot of opportunity to make some improvements to the farmer's market. So I guess where I'm going with this is, do you as staff come back to council with a proposed plan of reimagining what the farmer's market is at some point? And I'm seeing a nodding of it.
Yeah, through the chair, yes.
Okay, thank you. So just my comments with the farmer's market. I would love to see some food truck vendors there. I would love to see just something that will keep people there a little bit longer. I would love to see it. There's some overlap between the entertainment district and the farmer's market. So maybe an indoor outdoor vibe. Maybe the farmer's market has those garage doors that roll up and you have a brewery in there that can serve people outside. I think we can go so far with the farmer's market, and it can tie in quite nicely to the entertainment district. So I just wanted to leave those ideas and those concepts with staff so that give you an idea of sort of what I'm looking for there anyway. Whether or not the rest of council agrees with me is another story, but thank you so much for this report. It was really well done, and I look forward to seeing this execute over the next 10 years or so. Thanks.
Councilor McCurry.
Chair, thank you. And you're doing a fine job for going in for the mayor and keeping him on track. I do want to say that going back way back, there was a time when our economic development was strictly focused upon selling vacant land in Burnida. And we've sure come a long way, and it's nice to see us concentrating on some of our underutilized assets that really can be economic development tools. I think it's particularly beneficial to us to consider the maturity of the airport lands and future uses there. And I'm thinking that as we debate things sometimes here at council, it would have been helpful to have this report the week before we whacked up the rates by some horrible percent on airport hangars, which did nothing to, I believe it was to become a premier source for small corporate, private, commercial aircraft services. But I don't want to stray into the territory the mayor wandered into, but when I look at exploring potential partnerships to develop a shared vision, I'm thinking Municipal Service Corporation. When I look at some of the other comments that have made in terms of making our airport a really significant feature for economic development, I'm thinking we can't really do that unless we have sewer and water services there. And these are lands that are currently within the County of Brant governance. And the mayor, of course, City of Brantford has sewer and water that could go there. And the mayor did stray off topic a bit by talking about amalgamation, but I would use the other word, which begins with an A and ends in an X. Well, sort of the word annexation. And the way what our shared services thing originally did when Councillor Chambers and I brought it way back when, was we looked at a number of things, and all we ended up with was the annexation of the boundary lands, which was quite an outcome. And perhaps I don't mean to stray, Mr. Chair, and you can certainly intervene if you feel the need. But in terms of what the mayor spoke about earlier, we should be talking about both circumstances that start with the letter A in terms of our economic maturity and success.
Mayor Davis, to the report.
Yeah, to the report, and something that I already brought up, but I just want to say very briefly that I think it's an important economic development strategy, and that is working with the county. Unfortunately, that hasn't worked out too well. But anyways, I did indicate that I think an important economic development strategy is looking at the issue of amalgamation, but you have to do it based on facts, not opinions. We don't have much in the way of fact. And what I'm going to be doing, just to let the council know, is through the Strong Mayor legislation, direct staff to obtain a fact-based, unbiased assessment done by an outside consultant or economist or accountant, really giving us the facts, the cost benefits of amalgamation. It's a debate our community's had over decades. I think it's a debate that's well worth having for the economic future of both municipalities, but one based on fact. And so more to come through the budget process. But again, not intended to be contentious or disrespectful, but also really more about securing the economic future of this region, not just a municipality.
Not seeing any other speakers, call the vote.
Item 714 carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those councillors voting in favor, councillors Venkelberg, Samuel, Hunt, McCreary, Martin, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Scully, and Mayor Davis.
Mayor Davis, you have the chair.
You can finish it off.
Oh,
There's no resolutions.
No notice of motions. We are adjourned.